Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Corbett. Today, I'm going to be doing an interview here with Nikita and Merrick. Nikita is from Owlcat Games, the publisher of the upcoming Shadow of the Road, and Merrick here is a. Oh, Merrick, can you introduce yourself? Sorry, I want to give you the wrong titles and stuff.
Oh, it's in a team of our size, it's the title doesn't really matter. I'm responsible for the general direction for the Shadow of the Road, as well as I am a lead programmer developer of our project. So yeah, basically everything goes through me in terms of the production, planning, and execution of our project.
Okay, thank you. So I have some just basic questions. So start off. What was the reason for Shadow of the Road? What was the original, idea behind it?
Totally different than it is now, to be honest. But it is the kind of like pretty deep question to ask because our situation was kind of unusual, I would say, because we are, as another Angle Games studio, a really small and new team. And we are working on Shadow of the Road as our first project, first commercial one. And it didn't look like it is right now because initially we wanted to create more of like a logic mobile type of game. And that was
Hmm.
really we pivoted significantly, but a bit more of that a little bit later. But initially, we tried to work on the mobile game that was even more hardcore for the players because it was the learning curve and the entry level for the complexity of rules. It was supposed to be like more of a chess slash logical gameplay. The setting was there. It was also always going to be set in Japan. Some of the characters are from that set prototype or pre-pivotal phase, but it was really something different. And as we as we researched our way, as we developed at least part of the required skill set, we evaluated our option production wise and decided to go a bit different way with the project. We at this point we try to we from the very start we basically knew that we have to pivot because it wasn't a greatest idea ever for us to create such hardcore targeting players project with no experience. Commercially it wouldn't work, so we tried a different approach. We teamed up with some writers and we started to think about story-driven game. And this basically leads us to the point when we are. And the reason behind why we decided to go this way, probably it isn't as groundbreaking because it is born from passion and really uh, emotional attachment to the Japanese culture. But at the same time, and I'm saying we because the idea behind the game was born actually in two heads, not in just one. It was born in my and my dear friend Bogomil's head. and we basically wanted to create a tactical game because we were, the obvious reasons we were passionate about it. We played the games from the very childhood, so nothing groundbreaking here. But we did start working on a project as a side type part time part of the project from within the company that is our partner right now. So it's kind of convoluted story, but uh, yeah, it's the beginning was a lot different than it is right now, and we couldn't be more happy that for the place and the stage that the project is right now.
All right, then. Thank you. I can correlate my own experience, writing, and I work on short stories and stuff. So I get that where it's like the story started this way and this is how it's going. It's like that meme format, like how it began, how it ended. It's totally different product than what you initially meant. And hey, that's a part of the way of creating art. Yeah. So I understand all of that. You said that you're a new developer. Tell me a bit, like what's you all's like background in the gaming industry at Another Angle Games? Like where did you all get your start and everything? Because Shadow of the Road being your first game, was there any like previous work that you all did together, or was the team formulated just recently?
Right now, it varies depending on the team member. We have members with no experience in the game dev industry, but maybe not no experience right now because we are working on it for quite some time now. But it all started with me and Bogumił, and we at the time we didn't work in the game dev industry at all. We had a background of IT slash business IT. Uh, we worked on some, mobile application and desktop applications related to for example, architectural visualization, and it gives us a little bit of tech background to work on. But as the team was developed right now, we teamed up with some guys with experience in the industry. They worked on projects like, for example, Outriders from People Can Fly, Off the Grid from Godzilla. Even had, and it's kind of common thing in Poland to have someone in a team who worked on a Witcher series. So and also some of the smaller indie titles. So I would say that right now we have a quite wide range of experience among the team, whether it comes to the industry experience.
Okay, then. Thank you. That's cool. Like having everyone with different experiences and everything helps you make a more eclectically knowledgeable team overall. So I want to go into into a bit of recent things. So recently, Shadow of the Road had its alpha released. Those who are watching the interview are probably watching gameplay footage of the alpha. I wanted to know a bit more about that release and how that's gone for you. How have you all liked the release of the alpha, and how has the feedback been for you?
I was because it is very recent for us, and as you can imagine, it's kind of a new experience as well for us. So it is our first chance to get the players' impression and feelings about the game. So for me personally, it was equally stressful and exciting because I'm like a type of guy who reads all the comments. You can imagine it's my first project that sees the light of the world. So I spending countless hours right now browsing through the comments to the different section of the internet to find out how players react on a game, trying to engage with them, trying to see and feel why they feel the way they did. And it's wonderful because the initially, I'm handling the production. So initially, when we were discussing the entire idea about releasing the open alpha, it wasn't my most supported thing at the time because we have a lot of work to actually be done to the final release, and it wasn't something that I enjoyed much in terms of detaching ourselves from the regular production. But given that it was like 2 days ago, I can see it totally different now. I can see the why it is, apart from the obvious reasons why it will probably perform better or why we should have to do it, but it's a great experience for me as a lead of the project to be somewhat prepared, to be, you know, vulnerable in a sense that the players, someone from outside of our bubble, will comment and react on on our work. It's the smaller scope of this kind of interaction, but it's super important for me personally as a leader of our studio to be able to predict and to react and to adjust our next moves and iterate on a product on a project that we are creating. So it's totally new, totally exciting, and it is stressful because we are putting a lot of ourselves in this project. I am all in developing the best game that we can, and this obviously is emotional relation between the project, and especially when it comes to the to people players playing your game and expecting to be a little bit different than it is, perhaps, or praising it. There is an entire roller coaster of emotions right now in my head.
I understand that. I'm sure I don't like putting my own artwork out there and getting critiqued. No, it's no matter what someone says, sometimes it could just be like they said the nicest things, but you heard that one criticism and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, but
Maybe
it's not only about handling the criticism. It's
hmm
also about the situation when you realize that you cannot please everybody. It's always
Yeah.
gonna be a situation when someone likes one thing in particular and someone dislikes the entire project because of this very exact thing. And it's a lot of things that I probably wouldn't understand before releasing the alpha. And it is something that I have to work on and to adjust and to plan our actions later.
I understand. All right. Uh, my next question, if we go on to another one, is about something you said earlier. So earlier you mentioned that Shadow of the Road kind of like it started as as a hardcore game for on mobile, and now we're at a sort of like tactical CRPG. And CRPGs are they're very technical creations. A lot of writing, a lot of building, a lot of story editing, and all of these other things like that. Why did you choose a CRPG as you all's like first major game?
There were several reasons for that, but one of them, and probably one of the most visible from the outside, is that we don't like the usual path, I would say, of raising a new studio, especially in Poland, because we see a lot of studios that emerging in a quite common way when they are starting off with really very basic project that just have to validate them as the developer and then carefully build upon this previous experience. And I personally always trying to find my own way, and I think the we cannot rule it out, but the project is ambitious because we want it to be ambitious. We want it to be bigger than usual starting go-to project to be a part of the game dev industry. That's one a little bit of cocky reason why we try to make something else, basically to help us to break through the entry point of the industry. We have some hiccups along the way, probably because of it, but we learned a lot. Uh, on the other hand, we have this again, a little bit more boring reasons because we all love this type of genre and we cannot imagine working on something else that we love. So, this is a combined outcome of these two reasons, the big ambitious and really the games that we love. We would like to continue the development of our studio, growing our studio in a sense to feel connected, to stay true to the story-driven RPG games that means something, that touches a lot of important aspects, not be tied to casual mobile games. Not to disrespect anyone working on them, but it isn't our philosophy to grow as a studio.
I understand that, and hey, shoot for the moon, right? And then you'll get ahead. And look, that's great. I did ask because it was like it is an ambitious jump from like no game studio to full CRPG. So it's very interesting to me to see like when companies decide that instead of like your standard Metroidvania or platformer or whatever that can kind of sometimes become dime a dozen. No disrespect. I love that. I love that genre as well. But
yeah, I personally would love to create a Metroidvania one in the future, but it's totally separate path.
Mm-hmm.
It's my personal affection to the Metroidvania genre.
Okay. I have another question here is, as the studio is based in Poland, you mentioned having a former Witcher developer on your team. So as a studio is based in Poland, why'd you choose Japan for the location of the game? Not that there's any wrongness to that. It's just as a question, because like The Witcher is based in like medieval Poland or whatever, high fantasy medieval Poland. So I was like, oh, okay, why Japan? Why, or I always ask that up to developers, or think about that with developers who don't come from the place in which the games come from.
Yeah, I get it, and I'm not sure there is a right way to answer it, but because it was like several reasons why we choose Japan, but the two probably major ones was we wanted to create a dark and morbid story in some way, and by saying we, I mean probably mostly myself. I'm obsessed with the Japanese culture and approach to honor and how the society is looking like. When we started to work on the project, when it was already in a form of story-driven RPG, we created three different drafts of the scenario, and it wasn't initially set in any setting, any region, but all of the drafts were so fitting the Japanese culture when it comes to the consequences of your actions. honor has to be really important. There is a lot of, this dignified actions that are being praised among the community. It just clicked together immediately. And the other reason, and it's mostly a gameplay reason, we wanted to make the game about clash of the worlds. That's why we have in a game we have this traditional aspect of things versus the progress outside that is being clashed, and it feels really well when it's clashing together and we see different forces from different basically universes being faced at each other. So it felt, because the richness on the Japanese culture when it comes to the folklore, to the mythical creatures, to their beliefs, is really deep. I'm not saying that the Slavic culture isn't, but it's always like a little bit connected with us going up the river. We have to find our own way. We don't resort to the solutions that are being in some way granted for us. We have to find our own way. That's why we didn't stick with, for example, games set in a Slavic culture, because a lot of friendly studios in Poland are doing so. So we also try to find our own way, and it all clicked together. I think.
I think so too, especially if the goal was to be a bit horrific and morbid. Uh, the yokai boss fight at the end of the alpha definitely gave me the impression of a bit of a horror villain. Definitely gave me some horror fuel. And I've also, I've watched like all the, Ghibli films and everything else, and a lot of other like anime and things, and those sometimes the animators can really make their pen light their pen on fire when it comes to making something horrific. So actually I wanted to with that question make a bit of a dip into the game and some of the stuff about Shadow of the Road, like internally, as far as like what the alpha had and everything. And I wanted to ask some questions about like what was the decision behind not making a main character. In the Discord, I think I forgot who it was, but I remember I think I asked a question about I asked the question about the whole non-main PC. In CRPGs usually like you pick a character, you roll a class up, and then you kind of like go off adventuring. But in Shadow of the Road, we have like an established cast of characters, and when I was playing the alpha, I saw that the way morality worked was different for each one. So I have a few sub questions. I'm not going to hit you with all of them at the same time, but for one, like what was the thing that made you say, yeah, let's do say a combined list of characters, or like an ensemble cast. That's the word I wanted to say, an ensemble cast of characters versus your standard PC, especially in a CRPG type game.
That's a tough one. But I would say it was gameplay first, because our initial prototype, when it was in a form of this logical mobile game, was all around individuals with a different set of skills, and we try to convey this, to transfer this idea to this version of the game, the CRPG, the story-driven game, and it kind of started organically. That the more we thought about the abilities of the characters, how could they interact with each other on a battlefield, we tried to figure out how and why they should work as we are trying to make them, and they kind of organically started to feel more than expendable units, and started to feel like a heroes, like a characters. And when we started to see that, and we have this drafts of the story, it also started to make sense to find again our own way in the terms of the narrative, because we knew from the start that we will be relying a lot on the interactions between the characters in the party. We try to make it important, but from a different point of view that it is usually. And because of the fact how the characters should interact in a battlefield, we have this predetermined roles for them to make it interesting combat wise. At the same time, we've seen a lot of interesting potential of utilizing these characters now in a story, and it kind of developed as we progressed with the prototyping phase of our game, that it could be actually a great idea to use them and to switch from the individual point of view to like a puppet master kind of thing that oversees the events and try to adjust and find a way how all of the motivation and intention of the team members are aligning with the greater direction, greater goal of the story. So it was to sum up, it was originated in a gameplay, in a sense that we wanted to make the units that will be interacting with each other into the battlefield on the battlefield, and after that we basically transferred this idea to the story part of the game.
Okay, so the gameplay, and it's really nice to hear gameplay was kind of considered first, because on the gameplay, actually, just I'll throw out there, I enjoyed it. I overall enjoyed the gameplay as it was. So gameplay first mentality kind of it's worked out for you. I can tell you that right now.
Yes.
But I would also ask for the story and the characters. Well, for the story and the characters that we do have, I wanted to ask a bit of a fun question in the mix here of just who is your favorite character in the mix of those characters that we have currently. I know there's two that are secret right now, so I've been keeping up in the Discord. But of the five that we're allowed to see, who's your favorite?
My favorite is not visible yet in
Oh
alpha,
my gosh.
but
What a tease.
but if I had to choose from the characters, from the heroes that you had a chance to meet, it's definitely Ishida, the red giant. It's we redesigned this character visually, if I'm being correct, 3 or 4 times.
Oh wow.
It's his best shape ever, but it's all comes to the personal preference, obviously. But as I am playing other games, I'm always type of like the bulkiest, the heaviest unit you can find. It's always my pick, not regardless of the genre of the game, whether it's the online shooter or RPG. The biggest guy you can find, it will be only always my go-to. But when it comes to Ishida, there is a lot more about him. His contradicting trait is that he is one of the more jokingly. He makes a lot of jokes on the situation. He's like a funny uncle, giant but soft in a inside, soft on his head. So it's really something what I identify with. I would say from outside there is a hard shell, and the inside is relatively soft and not what you expect from this type of giant. But in terms of our story, there is a little bit more. You can see that his armor is a little bit different.
Hmm.
There is some sort of a flame-like elements on his armor, and it's there for a reason. And I also love the reason behind it and the deepness of that character. So that's Ishida is definitely my favorite one from the guys that you can see.
Okay, I understand. I also liked Ishida. He also was one of my favorites of the group that we got to play because he just seemed like a more fun-loving. I usually like that character as I don't know if you've ever played it. It was another game called Shadow Tactics, and there was a samurai character in that game, and Ishida reminded me of him very much so, even to the jokiness and the kind of casualness of his existence as a samurai. So
Yeah.
I have some world like questions. So if I understand, I'm not too well versed in Japanese history, but I did a bit of research to kind of like look at when the end of the shogun era of Japan kind of ended. So it was kind of like during the Meiji, if I pronounced that correctly, restoration. And I could
Yeah.
see that maybe that's where this game was taking place. What made you choose this era for the game's like story and setting? And also adding in the well, we'll go into that later. I want to ask about the giant robot spiders, but it's just why'd you choose this era?
Uh, it was. It is not a secret that we were heavily inspired by a game made by a Polish developer. It's called This War of Mine, and
Oh, I love that game.
yeah, and it is the greatest inspiration for us when it comes to the image of a really difficult times, to say at least. How it's like a very, I would say, fertile playground of emotions and how you can handle it. And we, as I said at the beginning, we always knew from the start that we want to make our story meaningful, dark, and tough for the players to progress, not to progress, but to enjoy. It should be heavy in terms of the narrative part. And war, civil war or regular war, it's kind of like not maybe not obvious choice, but it's there, and it can be utilized in a good way when telling the story. And when we started to think about placing our story in grounding in historical events, we see a great opportunity because this is the time historically when Japan went through the, as you said, Meiji transformation, restoration, and it's a very intense period in Japan history. So it's a civil war, overthrowing of the shogunate, a lot of social changes, and at the same time opening the borders for the outside world. Japan was really sealed from the external influence. So it's all of these pieces are moving right now. So it's a perfect place for us to fulfill this idea of clashing the worlds, to having this dark, heavy story that we are trying to tell. And it also we when we worked on the story on the draft of it, we seeked out some help from a guy that is obsessed with this period of Japan. So it helped he helped us to see the potential of our story being grounded in these events because it felt just right.
You used a very thank you for that. You used a very operative word of grounded there. But the story is, while it's grounded in that time, the groundedness kind of like, I guess, begins and ends on on that part, because we have like the yokai and the demon spirits and giant robots, and everything else. And so I was like, I wanted to ask, like, why go for the the sci-fi versus, because I saw that theme throughout the marketing and stuff and everything, the sci-fi or the technology versus magic and everything else, even with I think her name, I forgot the female character's name, the mom character, but even hmm?
It's Asuka.
Yes. And saw like with her abilities and stuff with her hair, and so I was like, oh wow, it's got a bit of it's got a civil war, and we have this whole magic versus technology thing going. So what was that just the cool rule of cool factor, is like, hey, samurai versus robots, that's always going to be cool? What was the reason for going for adding the sci-fi elements with the futuristic foreigners and
I would say that it is an outcome of something that might be a little spoilery, so I won't be
oh, okay.
digging too much onto this topic. But the mechs are there for a reason, and the reason is mostly like calculated, balance kind of thing, because the yokais might be more useful, and they might, be utilized, if I can say that, in a way that we can use them as a help. And as I was trying to say earlier, that we try to use the setting, the situation in Japan, the opening on of the borders, the Western technology is based on actual East India company, this conglomerate that actually existed, and we thought that it should be, without it, it will be kind of like one-sided conflict. We have to find something to even out the odds, and to make some unpredictable encounters, in a sense. So mostly, again, gameplay first reasons, I
Hmm.
would say.
I was wondering, and it's so funny you say that, because I started thinking before, like, because of the marketing, I was like, I wonder how these characters are going to start fighting, mechs with swords. I was that's like always, that's kept going through my head. It's like, I wonder how the logic is going to be. Are we going to get superpowers? Is this about to be some Dragon Ball Z type thing? What are we getting here? Chi, ki, what are we doing? But I'm interested. All of that is to say, I'm very much interested in where that goes. I don't want to, I want to push you in a spoiler position, so I'll leave that be and just ask a bit about gameplay. So it's like some gameplay questions.
Mhm.
So the game is a tactical RPG on the game, as far as the gameplay. Our basic cast was, if I did the numbers correctly, it's about 7 characters in our cast. Just wanted to ask about, like, is the game open world? Is the game like open zone, or is it what, can we get some like idea of how the game would play overall, or a similar ish type situation?
Sure. And to answer it quite directly, it isn't an open world. It's like a sequence of events and locations that player will go through. It's more like I would say, a banner saga, especially the first two parts, the Oregon Trail kind of a story. So we shouldn't expect great open locations. More of them are like slightly lower, but smaller, not lower, but definitely greater in size than what you see in the demo. But it is in open alpha. It is a location after location, kind of like linear type of story. But in terms of the progression and how player will go through it, but of course, we have branching in the story progression. We have different endings, so
Hmm.
it won't be exactly linear in all of the sense.
Okay, I was going to ask that because I've played all three Banner Sagas too. And so you just been hitting all my hits, all my like high school into college hits. But I I I can see how that leads to changes in the narrative. So most of player decisions will kind of like change. Maybe like character A lives or character B dies. But will our story kind of like with the deviating paths that the story can go, will there be like separate locations where like character, like if say I don't know, like Ishida, and if you're playing him a certain type of way, he'll go to this place one, but if you're playing him a different type of way, he'll go to place two, instead of just like, oh, he goes to place one then two every single playthrough, but you can change how he acts in those two places.
I will somewhat try to avoid answer this question.
Oh, okay.
Reason,
That was a little too heavy of podcast, too much.
but what I can say is that the party composition will be changing along the way, but unfortunately, I won't be going too much into the specifics how
That's fair.
and why. Sorry about it.
That's fair. No, I understand. So it's all right then. On the gameplay front, in terms of the combat, we have every character plays slightly differently. I noticed, like when I was playing, I played through twice. So I saw Akira. He's an arrow user, so he's a ranged combatant. And then you have like, what's it called, Ishida. He's more of like a tank. He very much fits the archetype, that archetype. And uh, our main character, Osu, Osuka, Osuke, I forgot his name.
You mean Satoru?
Satoru. Yeah, sorry. Oof. I meant him. My bad. He seemed like, our standard like fast hitting samurai character. And so with all of that, you just said, yeah, the party composition will, ebb and flow. And I noticed that even in the alpha with the young boy character that we had, where he was, incapacitated for most of the combat. So I thought about like what made you choose like does each character have the ability to like change their sort of way of playing? Is there like each character has their own stat screen. So can the characters change how they play? Like, can I make Akira sort of like a mixed attacker, or will I be able to make like Satoru more of like a heavy hitting, slower character like Ishida, and Ishida can be like faster or something?
To some extent, I would say, because all of our characters have these tiers of responsibilities that are predefined, but we want to give some players some flexibility around them. That's why, for example, you see that there is each character have their two distinct paths that he can be developed in. And it is a little bit correlated with how you can build your character and adjust their playstyle. You won't be able, to switch the primary roles. To be precise, for example, you won't be able to I don't know, make Akira a tank now and wield heaviest sword of them all. It is kind of like given and granted the purpose, but there is some way to alter it various via at least the development in a skill tree and for the paths. So it will be a little bit different depending on your choices and how the also how the relations work between the characters. Because what you didn't see in the open alpha is that the combat is also going to be affected by the relations between the characters. So depending on how
Mm.
you build it, you will gain some access to some other mechanic that it isn't visible right now.
Okay, that's cool. I think that answered my next question was how the morality would work in the gameplay, because I was just about to say in it's not a thing on in my impressions I said is one of the things I'm interested in is take a character like Akira. I saw he had like ruthless versus some opposing morality on
Yeah.
his own in his dialogue choices. And I was very interested in like how exactly will that affect the storyline? You know, if I make him too ruthless, does he just like just one shot a person out of nowhere? Does he just say, I'm tired of this? And he just pulls that Indiana Jones and just goes and hits an arrow on somebody? Or if you make Satoru, if you make him more of a Ronin versus like a traditional samurai, does he, you know, start making dialogue choices for the play, not even make for the player, but he starts changing the way he speaks? So I was going to ask into that, and also how gameplay is affected. But you answered the gameplay, but so I'd ask more like how that affects the story, how their morality affects their stories, maybe in
Yeah,
minor ways, of course.
I like this question because it's one of the areas of our project that I really enjoy. It's that it's all interconnected. The to maybe not directly answer your question is, but the morale and the relationship system affects the combat and the other way around as well, because the combat can affect the relationship system, because you can, for example, have some assists on the battlefield. You can help some teammate, and it also can boost or damage your relation with this character. And when it comes to the narrative part,
Mm-hmm.
it's also connected. As you can probably already tell, as a player, you will make sometimes you will have to choose the dialogue option for different characters. There will be situation when the same uh, decision will be able to you will be able to make a response by using multiple characters. I'm choosing from multiple characters at once, and it will the relationship between the characters and how they react to each other will be also influenced by the relationship and the moral system that we have. So you will see different dialogue options, you will see different responses, but it also might lead to some dialogue paths that are reserved for only a certain path, for example, for a character. So there will be a lot of interconnected pieces when it comes to the narrative and how it reflects the morale and the relationship system.
All right. Okay. I think that's kind of all my questions here. I think I've got a pretty good feeling overall about how the game's going. Did you have anything specifically you wanted to maybe like ask in reverse or anything else like that?
I don't think I am probably. I'm
No.
still processing, release of the of the open alpha, and probably my brain isn't working as its full capacity right now. So sorry if I
Hmm.
didn't answer your question clear enough, or don't have any follow-ups. But yeah, it is what it is right now.
It's okay. I just thought to ask because you always want to give people a chance to just say, "Oh, I had a I had a thought." But last thing would be, what can people when can so the alpha's out. It's been out for 2 days now. You've gotten some feedback and everything else. What can people expect? The release date we don't know. It's done when it's done, as we spoke about earlier. But what can people expect to hear from next with it? Can we expect a beta maybe in the future? Can we get that? Can we know?
This is other question that I won't be able to answer, and
Ah,
probably
okay.
that's why Nikita is watching closely my every move, because you know he will beat the shit out of me if I do some.
Uh, No,
You can
yeah,
whisper it.
basically, we can't exclude it, as you may know, based on the experience of all cat games ourselves. So we're huge fans of different alphas and betas, and all our games have at least two testing periods. So we'll see how it goes. Again, right now, the main focus is to uh, get all the feedback that we will gather during the alpha, just work on it, and then we will decide how to proceed. Again, maybe there will be beta, maybe no. So we'll see how it goes. But again, we definitely don't want to exclude any further opportunities to show the game to the audience and to the media and etc.
All right, then that's fair, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. So we can find Shadow of the Road on Steam. Can those who have played, they should join the Discord, right? Is there any other ways they can like send in information or get in contact
Yeah,
with
the
you all?
Discord is definitely the best place. I'm there basically 24/7, and I read all of the messages, all of the feedback that comes from the playtesters of the open alpha is invaluable for us, and there is definitely more discussion going there than, for example, Steam community forums. So yeah, I encourage everyone to join our Discord.
All right, and that's the call to action for those listening to play the alpha, give feedback, give strong, good feedback, bad feedback, however you feel, and of course, join the Discord, join the conversation, follow up with all the information and everything else like that. I'll have the Discord link or the join link maybe in the description of this video so people can click it and join and get started, supporting the game and everything. And I think that's it then. So I would like to say thank you to you, Merrick, and thank you to Nikita for joining me today and in this interview. And I hope that I'm very much looking forward to further, playing more of the game, seeing how it goes. Some of your inspirations have definitely piqued my interest even more with everything. So I just want to thank you for just joining me for this interview and everything else like that.
Yeah, thank you. It was really my pleasure. Thanks for having us, and have a great day.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. And once we have some more updates, we'll definitely share with you and with your audience.
Thank you so much. Okay. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thanks. See ya.
Yeah, bye.